The moment that changed everything happened on a Saturday evening in April, when my courtroom doors opened and in walked someone who'd built an empire on violence, who'd normalized aggression as entertainment, and who'd recently been caught on video slapping his own wife on New Year's Eve with minimal consequences. Dana White, 55 years old, president of the UFC, the man who transformed mixed martial arts into a multi-billion-dollar global phenomenon, net worth estimated at $500 million. A man known for his explosive temper, his profanity-laced tirades, and his belief that might makes right. He walked in wearing an expensive suit that couldn't hide his aggressive energy, his trademark bald head, his thick build, his constant scowl. Behind him came 6 attorneys from a firm that specialized in defending powerful men accused of violence against women, 3 UFC executives, his head of PR who'd been working overtime, and several large men who appeared to be personal security despite this being a courthouse. But sitting in the gallery, looking dignified despite visible injuries, was someone who represented everything Dana claimed to respect but clearly didn't. Dr. Sarah Martinez, 41 years old, paramedic and emergency medical technician with 16 years of experience, former Army combat medic who'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan, a woman who'd treated wounded soldiers under fire, who'd saved lives in impossible conditions, and who now worked as the head medical coordinator for major sporting events in Las Vegas. 3 weeks ago, she'd been working a UFC event at T-Mobile Arena. A fighter had been knocked unconscious in the octagon. Sarah had rushed in to provide immediate medical care following her training and protocols. But Dana White had disagreed with her medical assessment. He'd wanted the fighter to continue. When Sarah refused to clear the fighter, citing concussion protocols, Dana had exploded. In front of 18,000 fans and millions watching on pay-per-view, he'd gotten in her face, screamed obscenities at her, grabbed her arm when she tried to continue treating the patient, and when she stood her ground, he'd shoved her aside hard enough that she fell, striking her head on the canvas. The charges were assault and battery, interference with emergency medical services, and assault on a healthcare worker, which carried enhanced penalties under Nevada law. The entire incident had been captured on multiple broadcast cameras, on thousands of cell phones, and on the arena's security system. And now Dana stood in my courtroom, clearly believing his power, his wealth, his status as the face of the UFC, and his history of facing minimal consequences for violence would make this disappear.
What I did in the next 45 minutes didn't just shock the courtroom. It created an international sports scandal, forced conversations about toxic masculinity in combat sports, sparked debates about the safety of female professionals in male-dominated industries, and proved that in America, when the system works correctly, no amount of power, no billion-dollar business, no claim that aggression is just part of sports culture places anyone above the law when they assault healthcare workers. If you believe that running a fighting organization doesn't give you the right to commit actual violence, that disagreeing with a medical professional doesn't justify assault, that judges must defend healthcare workers even when facing billionaire sports executives, hit that subscribe button right now because what I'm about to do will show you that even Dana White faces consequences. Mr. White, you're charged with assault and battery, interference with emergency medical services, and assault on a healthcare worker. How do you plead? His lead attorney stood immediately. Thomas Richardson, a lawyer who defended countless wealthy men in assault cases. Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty. What happened that night was a misunderstanding in a high-pressure, high-stakes sporting event. Mr. White is passionate about fighter safety and the integrity of his sport. When he believed Dr. Martinez was making an incorrect medical call that could affect the outcome of a championship fight, he reacted with the intensity he's known for. But there was no assault. This was a heated professional disagreement that got physical accidentally in the chaos of the moment. Mr. Richardson, your client shoved a paramedic who was treating an unconscious patient. On live television, in front of thousands of witnesses. That's not a misunderstanding. That's assault. Mr. White, how do you plead? He stood, and everything about his posture radiated aggressive confidence. Not guilty. Look, Your Honor, I run the biggest combat sports organization in the world. I've been doing this for 25 years. I know fighters. I know when someone can continue and when they can't. That night, Dr. Martinez made a call I disagreed with. A call that cost my organization millions of dollars because we had to stop a championship fight. I didn't assault her. I tried to do my job, which is protecting the integrity of the UFC. She was being overly cautious, and I told her so. Things got heated. That's it. Mr. White, she was treating an unconscious man. You physically moved her out of the way. The fighter was fine. He was cleared by other doctors later that night. She overreacted, and her overreaction cost us a title fight. Ms. Park, please present the evidence. The prosecutor approached with her equipment. Your Honor, we have broadcast footage from the pay-per-view event, multiple camera angles, audio from the broadcast, ringside microphones, and witness statements from 47 people including fighters, referees, other medical staff, and UFC employees. May I present them? I nodded. The lights dimmed. The first video showed the UFC octagon during a championship fight. Two fighters were exchanging strikes. Then one fighter landed a devastating head kick. His opponent went stiff and fell to the canvas, completely unconscious before he hit the ground. The referee immediately stopped the fight and called for medical assistance. Dr. Sarah Martinez rushed into the octagon with her medical bag and 2 assistants. The unconscious fighter was lying motionless. Sarah immediately began her assessment, checking his responsiveness, his breathing, stabilizing his neck. The broadcast announcers were explaining this was standard concussion protocol. Then Dana White climbed into the octagon. His face was red, visible even from the broadcast cameras. He walked directly to Sarah, who was still crouched over the unconscious fighter. The ringside microphones picked up everything. Dana was yelling, "What are you doing? Let him up. He's fine." Sarah remained focused on her patient, not even looking up at Dana. "Sir, I need space to work. Please step back." Dana moved closer, now standing directly over her. "I'm asking you a question. Why are you treating him like he's dying? He got knocked out. It happens. Get him up." Sarah finally looked up at Dana, her voice calm but firm. "Mr. White, I understand you want the fight to continue, but this fighter is unconscious. He needs immediate evaluation. I'm following concussion protocols." Dana's voice got louder. "Concussion protocols? This is a fight. People get knocked out. That's the whole point. You're making this into some medical emergency when it's just a knockout." Sarah stood now, positioning herself between Dana and her patient. Her assistants were still working on the fighter. "Mr. White, I'm the medical professional here. This fighter is not continuing tonight. He needs to go to the hospital for evaluation." Dana's face was inches from hers now. "You don't make that call. I make that call. This is my organization." Sarah's voice remained steady. "Nevada State Athletic Commission medical protocols give me final say on fighter safety. The fighter is not cleared. Please leave the octagon so we can do our jobs." That's when Dana grabbed her arm. The camera caught it clearly from multiple angles. He wrapped his hand around her upper arm and squeezed, pulling her toward him. "You're going to clear him. Right now, or you're never working another UFC event." Sarah pulled her arm away. "Mr. White, let go of me. You're interfering with emergency medical care." The crowd had gone quiet now. Thousands of people watching this confrontation. The broadcast team was commenting nervously about the situation being unprecedented. Dana wasn't backing down. "You know how much money is on this fight? You know how many people paid to see a conclusion? You're ruining everything because you want to play doctor." Sarah's voice rose now, firm and clear. "I am a doctor. I'm a paramedic with 16 years of experience. I'm a combat veteran, and I'm telling you this fighter needs medical evaluation before anything else happens." Dana snapped. "You're a paramedic? You're barely qualified to drive an ambulance. I've got real doctors on call. I'll get a second opinion." Sarah stepped toward him now, standing her ground despite the size difference. Dana was 5 feet 11 inches and probably 200 pounds. Sarah was 5 feet 6 inches and maybe 140 pounds. But she wasn't backing down. "You can get all the opinions you want, but I'm the medical professional on site, and Nevada law is clear. The fighter doesn't move until I clear him or until he's transported to a hospital. That's final." Dana's face went purple with rage. "You're done. You're finished. You'll never work sports medicine again. I'll make sure of it." Sarah didn't flinch. "Are you threatening me, Mr. White?" That's when Dana shoved her. Both hands on her shoulders, a hard push backward. Sarah stumbled, tried to catch her balance, but her foot caught on the canvas. She fell hard, the back of her head striking the octagon floor with a sickening thud that the microphones picked up clearly. The crowd gasped. Fighters at ringside jumped up. UFC officials rushed forward. Sarah's medical assistants immediately shifted from treating the unconscious fighter to helping Sarah, who was lying on the canvas, dazed, holding the back of her head. Dana stood there, still angry, pointing down at her. That's what happens when you don't know your place. This is my cage, my rules. Security moved in then, physically separating Dana from the medical staff. The broadcast cut to commercial. When it returned, both fighters had been taken to the hospital, and Dana was nowhere to be seen. The second video showed backstage footage. Dana was in his office, pacing, still angry. Several UFC executives were trying to calm him down. The audio from a security camera captured Dana's words. She embarrassed me in front of 18,000 people. She challenged me in my own octagon. She cost us millions. I don't care if I pushed her. She had it coming. Female EMTs shouldn't be working combat sports if they can't handle the pressure. The third video showed police arriving backstage. Dana initially refused to cooperate, claiming he had immunity as the UFC president, that this was an internal sports matter, that Sarah had been insubordinate. When officers explained he was being arrested for assault, Dana threatened to sue the Las Vegas Police Department, to use his connections to have the charges dropped, to make sure everyone involved regretted this. When the lights came back on, the courtroom was completely silent. I looked at Dana White, whose face showed no remorse, just that same aggressive certainty that he was right and everyone else was wrong. Mr. White, you just watched yourself assault a paramedic who was treating an unconscious patient. You grabbed her, threatened her job, shoved her hard enough that she hit her head on the canvas. In front of 18,000 people and millions watching at home. Do you still maintain your innocence? Thomas Richardson stood quickly. Your Honor, my client was under immense pressure. The UFC is a billion-dollar business. Split-second decisions cost millions. When Dr. Martinez refused to consider my client's input about the fighter's condition, my client reacted emotionally. The physical contact was accidental, a result of the chaos and heated emotions. Counselor, your client grabbed her arm, threatened her career, called her barely qualified, then shoved her with both hands hard enough to knock her down. That's not accidental. That's intentional violence. Your Honor, my client has already faced consequences. The Nevada Athletic Commission fined him $250,000. He's made a public apology. He's completed anger management counseling. Criminal charges are excessive for what amounts to a workplace disagreement. Mr. Richardson, your client assaulted a healthcare worker who was saving someone's life. That's not a workplace disagreement. That's a crime. Dr. Martinez, please approach. Sarah stood and walked forward with military bearing, back straight, head high. Up close I could see she still had a slight scar at her hairline from where her head had struck the canvas. She wore her paramedic uniform, her service medals pinned to her chest. She looked directly at me with the calm confidence of someone who'd faced far worse than a bully in a suit. Dr. Martinez, tell me about your background. Your Honor, I joined the Army at 19. Became a combat medic. Served in Afghanistan from 2008 to 2010 and again from 2012 to 2014. I treated wounded soldiers under fire. I performed emergency surgeries in field hospitals. I saved lives when the nearest real hospital was 100 miles away. I was awarded the Bronze Star for Valor after I ran into enemy fire to retrieve 2 wounded Marines. After my service, I went to medical school. Became a paramedic. Got certifications in trauma care, emergency medicine, sports medicine. For the last 6 years, I've been the head medical coordinator for major sporting events in Las Vegas. I've worked hundreds of events. Boxing matches, UFC fights, football games, concerts. I've treated everything from minor cuts to cardiac arrests. Have you ever had a problem with event organizers before? Never like this, Your Honor. Promoters and organizers sometimes want fights to continue. I understand that. There's money at stake, reputations, titles. But they've always respected medical decisions. Because they understand that if someone dies in the ring because we ignored concussion protocols, it doesn't matter how much money was on the line. A life is gone. Tell me what happened that night at the UFC event. Your Honor, the fighter took a brutal head kick. He was unconscious before he hit the canvas. That's a serious sign. When someone's knocked out before impact, it indicates severe brain trauma. I went into the octagon immediately and began assessment. The fighter was unresponsive. His eyes weren't tracking. He wasn't responding to stimuli. These are all signs of serious concussion, possibly brain bleeding. I made the call that he needed immediate transport to a hospital for CT scan. That's not a controversial decision. That's standard medical protocol. Any paramedic in the country would make the same call. Then Mr. White climbed into the octagon and started questioning my assessment. I tried to remain professional. I explained the situation, but he didn't want to hear it. He wanted the fighter cleared to continue if possible, because there were millions of dollars on the line. When I refused, he became aggressive. He grabbed my arm hard enough to leave bruises. He told me I was barely qualified. Your Honor, I have more medical training and experience than probably anyone in that arena that night. But because I'm a woman, because I dared to challenge him, he dismissed me. Then he shoved me. I fell and hit my head. I had a concussion myself. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was treating a concussion victim when I got a concussion from the man running the event. Her voice remained steady, but her eyes showed the anger of a professional who'd been assaulted for doing her job. What hurt more than the physical injury was the disrespect. I served my country. I've saved lives. I'm an expert in my field. And Dana White treated me like I was an obstacle to his business, like my medical judgment didn't matter because he's the UFC president. After the assault, I spent 3 days in the hospital. The concussion affected my vision, my balance. I had migraines for weeks. I had to take medical leave for the first time in my career. And the worst part? Dana never apologized. He went on podcasts saying I overreacted. He said female paramedics are too emotional for combat sports. He said if a man had been there, the fighter would have been cleared. But you know what? That unconscious fighter? He had a subdural hematoma. Brain bleeding. If I had cleared him and he'd continued fighting, he could have died in that octagon. My call saved his life. And Dana White assaulted me for making it. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Several people in the gallery were shaking their heads in disgust. I looked at Dana White, who was staring at his phone, scrolling through something, apparently bored by Sarah's testimony. Mr. White, put the phone away and look at Dr. Martinez. He looked up slowly, pocketed the phone with exaggerated slowness, and stared at Sarah with open contempt. Mr. White, you heard Dr. Martinez's testimony. She's a decorated combat veteran. She's a trained medical professional. She saved a fighter's life that night. And you assaulted her for it. What do you have to say? He stood, and when he spoke, his voice had that same aggressive certainty from the video. Look, I respect Dr. Martinez's service. I respect veterans. But that night, she made a call that cost me millions of dollars and ruined a championship fight. Was I frustrated? Yes. Did I express that frustration? Yes. Did I mean to push her down? No. It was an accident in a chaotic situation. Mr. White, the video shows you pushing her with both hands. Deliberately. She was in my face, questioning my authority in my own octagon. I reacted. That's what I do. I'm aggressive. I'm intense. That's how I built the UFC into what it is today. So you're saying your success gives you the right to assault people? I'm saying I'm passionate about my business, and sometimes passion gets physical. This is combat sports, Your Honor. We're not running a knitting circle. Things get heated. Dr. Martinez wasn't fighting in your octagon, Mr. White. She was saving a man's life. And you assaulted her for it. He shrugged, a gesture that showed how little he thought this mattered. I've apologized publicly. I've paid the fine. I think we're done here. Mr. White, we're not done. Stand up straight and show some respect. He straightened slightly, jaw set in defiance. Mr. White, you're 55 years old. You're a successful businessman. You run a global sports organization. You have power and influence. And you've used that power to normalize violence, to excuse your own violent behavior, to attack anyone who challenges you. You slapped your wife on New Year's Eve and faced minimal consequences. You've punched business partners. You've threatened journalists. And now you've assaulted a decorated combat veteran for saving someone's life. Here is my finding. You are guilty of assault and battery. The video evidence is irrefutable. You physically attacked Dr. Martinez. You are guilty of interference with emergency medical services, which is a serious crime because it endangers patients. And you are guilty of assault on a healthcare worker, which carries enhanced penalties under Nevada law specifically because we protect medical professionals who are doing their jobs. His face went red. Your Honor, that's ridiculous. I run the UFC. I can't go to jail. Mr. White, you're about to find out you can. Here is your sentence. For assault and battery on a healthcare worker, 2 years in state prison. For interference with emergency medical services, 1 year consecutive. For the enhanced penalty of assaulting a healthcare worker engaged in patient care, an additional year. Total of 4 years in custody. The courtroom erupted. His attorneys were on their feet screaming. UFC executives were on their phones. Dana himself looked genuinely shocked for the first time. Thomas Richardson was yelling, "Your Honor, 4 years for the UFC president? This is outrageous. This will destroy the organization. Mr. White is essential to thousands of jobs, to fighter careers, to the sport itself. We'll appeal immediately. Counselor, your client should have thought about that before assaulting a paramedic on live television. Additionally, I'm ordering Mr. White to pay $2 million in restitution to Dr. Martinez. This includes medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, and a substantial punitive amount because your client has the resources and because he showed zero remorse. I'm also ordering Mr. White to complete a comprehensive program on respecting healthcare workers and women in professional environments. And I'm recommending to the Nevada Athletic Commission that they review Mr. White's fitness to continue as UFC president." Dana exploded. "You can't do that. I built the UFC. Without me, there is no UFC. You're destroying everything. Mr. White, you destroyed it yourself when you put your hands on a healthcare worker. Bailiff, take him into custody." Officers moved forward. Dana pulled away initially. "Do you know who I am? I'm Dana White. I know governors. I know senators. I'll have this overturned before lunch." The officers took his arms. "Mr. White, one more threat and I'll add contempt of court to your sentence." As they handcuffed him, Dana was still talking. "This is bullshit. Complete bullshit. I'm being persecuted for running a tough business. Wait until my lawyers are done with you." Dr. Martinez stood watching. Dana looked at her as they led him past. "You happy now? You destroyed a man's career because you couldn't handle some pressure." Sarah spoke quietly but clearly. "I saved a man's life that night, Mr. White. You attacked me for it. I didn't destroy your career. You did." The doors closed. Within minutes, it was international sports news. ESPN broke into regular programming. Sports analysts debated whether the UFC could survive without Dana White. Fighters posted reactions. Some supported Dana, saying he was passionate about the sport. Others supported the verdict, saying violence outside the octagon is different from sanctioned competition. 3 months later, the Nevada Supreme Court upheld my sentence. Their opinion stated that assault on healthcare workers engaged in patient care warrants serious punishment regardless of the perpetrator's position or influence. Judge Caprio's sentence appropriately reflects both the severity of the crime and the defendant's complete lack of remorse. Dana White is currently serving his sentence at Ely State Prison. Dr. Sarah Martinez received her restitution and continues working as a paramedic coordinator. She's become an advocate for protecting healthcare workers from workplace violence. The UFC appointed an interim president and implemented new protocols requiring all executives to complete healthcare worker respect training. If this story moved you, subscribe. Share it with anyone who needs to understand that running a fight organization doesn't give you the right to commit violence, that healthcare workers deserve respect and protection, that military veterans who save lives should never be assaulted for doing their jobs. Dana White thought his power made him untouchable. "I gave him 4 years in prison and proved that in America, no one is above the law."